I suppose my first question is to the GPO network, and I suppose is to expand a little on what Peter, Joe and Nem have been talking about, which is, and it's all about participation within organisations that make decisions around disability. In fact, it's all about involvement in organisations that make decisions, period, because disabled people are everywhere and need to be included in decisions. I think for too long decisions for disabled people rather than with disabled people have been the way to go, and that's not. That has to change now. So I'm just wondering if, you've said that an investment in empowering DPOs is essential to ensure that they can engage and represent their membership. So just to expand on that, and just to give an indication about involvement in, say, for example, we've had a lot of talk about the PPN here this morning, about involvement of the different organisations within your network on PPN. I know you've said there that DPO networks, they're not always organised on a county or district basis, and that can make it difficult to be involved. So I'm just wondering, are you aware of how much involvement there is by your members on the different PPNs, and how can that be improved? I know, as I said, there is going to be a review done, and that will help identify where there are shortcomings. But if you can expand on that first, and I'll come back then.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, just as an example, in terms of the actual support for GPOs, in terms of moving forward to realise the UNCOPD, I'll give you an example up here in North West, in Sligo Disabled Persons Organisation had their first AGM last week. So my role was to give technical support to that process, which took a couple of months, and also training for members in committee skills, and also using a very creative way of engaging your people across impairment. So people with the label of intellectual disability, people with the label of CP, or people with the label of autism, to find a space, a level of communication through drama or creative writing and workshop-based to realise the AGM. So that takes a lot of work to actually takes time for the organisation to invest in that process as well. So that's the type of support, looking at the disabled people like myself and activists who are giving that direct support to local DPOs. And Sligo DPO now is part of the Sligo PPN. So part of that is that they're going to develop a series of videos made by disabled people on the lived experience of disabled people in Sligo for the PPN to look at. And also the Leitrim GPO was involved in the housing strategy group. But again, the group has to find a community centre space. We don't use disability sector spaces because the culture of the organisations are not the same as the culture of GPOs, and they're usually mostly run by non-disabled people who are not necessarily coming from a human rights and social model perspective. So community centres around the country, like in Sligo North Side Community Centre, they have a culture of working with different marginalised groups. So when disabled people go into community centres, they're welcome, and they're able to say what they think. So an example of that would be with the Leitrim DPO is that I was asking disabled young people on a one-to-one basis in the day centres, would they like to get their own place? And they all said no. But when they're brought into a community space in Duncambo, and we did a MAB workshop on managing your money and how do you budget for going on a date, clothes, taxi, food, At the end of the workshop, I asked the same people in a collective space to create a fund-based method. Would you like to get your own place? I said, where do you go after a date? Is a date a successful way to go? And I said, would you like to get your own place? And all the same people who said no in the day centre, they all said, yes, we'd like to get our own place. So it was having the culture of the community centre and knowing that what you said would you have the choice to talk about the lived experience. So in terms of the actual support for the DPO process, it's important that disabled activists and DPO are given the resources, just in terms of even hiring community groups, hiring sign language, doing workshops. That all costs money, and Ireland is using resources as best as can to support the kind of local DPOs on that basis.
People with intellectual disabilities need to be considered, and people who are non-verbal. They are the very people that I come in contact every day. This is my second or third time feeding into the disability matters on specific issues to do with local government and policy making decisions. And I think if you don't get the people with intellectual disabilities to have their say, be it women, men, young teenagers, the people up there in the Dáil who are making policy changes to everything won't be getting the true picture from everybody, because not everybody has access to internet in their houses or local communities. Because where I come from in East Clare, I have access through the internet because I put it in myself, because the national platform was working from their homes or where they were living, and that's how we happen to get some of our work done so far, because we haven't met since the pandemic face to face.
I'd like to talk about community inclusion. To have really meaningful interaction with government on a local level really doesn't happen, or at national level, for the deaf community. What we need to see changes in is the government and state organisations having an inclusive consultative process with DPOs on equality, services, strategic plans, projects. We need resources made available to us to allow us to participate and contribute and advocate with the state. Hold on, Elaine. Two sentences. So what would happen if in the consultative process, if it's not complete, then we're limited and we see things set up. Then we have additional barriers to face later on, like the railway station that was mentioned. But without community consultation, and just to give you another example that happened recently, the Department of Education fantastically has just launched an ISL plan for primary school children in school, ISL Access, and they asked me for my consultation, my views on it, which I welcomely did that. Then at the launch, I come to see that what I had offered in terms of consultation wasn't taken on board. Their decisions were already made, and they made their announcement. Yeah. And we do have local deaf community groups scattered around Ireland who are not included at a local level in the community in decision making because of lack of access and awareness. And we are trying our best to connect with local government and communities, but without the resources, that's very difficult. But with funding from government, that would enable us and empower us to participate at a community and local level with county councils and so on. For example, recently we've had Ukraine people come to live here. Many of them are actually deaf and are scattered around Ireland. And they are also experiencing isolation. We have no resources to reach out to those deaf Ukrainians who came to live here and involve them and include them. So the multi-annual funding would help tremendously with DPOs to carry out their service delivery. Equality and disability is a huge, huge issue, and we can change that by creating inclusion at community level. We change attitudes that way. Just recently, the ISL Act 2017 was passed, and that has been created a massive demand in providing equality to deaf people, but we don't have the resources, the office spaces. We don't have an office in every county in Ireland. So in terms of time, it is time for the government to support local DPOs and deaf organisations.
Yes, thanks for all the contributions. And I wanted to respond to one earlier question. Are people with disabilities really consulted? And, whereas we're talking about some of the great initiatives and structures that are available in Ireland for community participation, from a DPO perspective, making those structures available is not enough. DPOs are voluntary or they're unfunded for their national advocacy work. Staff are limited, resources, training, capacity is limited. And this is one of the fundamental points we're trying to get across in our submission here, that we need to be resourced to take part in consultations. And to now, much consultation with disabled people has been under either a welfare or a heavily medically influenced model. And under UN CRPD and public sector duty, this really needs to change an attitude towards an equality and a rights-based approach. And that change in attitude changes everything, because much policy and many systems for consultation are reactive rather than proactive. Now, we need local government and local authorities to proactively seek and resource DPO consultation, not merely making the opportunities available. We need to be actively supported. We need understanding about accessibility needs, and we need to be resourced to develop the capacity and capability and leadership skills to provide that kind of input. Also, time needs to be considered. It takes voluntary DPOs and underfunded DPOs longer to respond, and in some instances there's assistance needed to understand the complex topics that are being offered so we can contribute. So when we ask are people with disabilities genuinely consulted, unfortunately the answer at the moment is no. We're being asked to respond to schemes that have already been developed, that are going to be put in place, it seems, regardless from our input. And then when it comes to assessment, often we're excluded as well. I mean, recent examples from the Irish Deaf Society would include the engagements of the Sign Language Interpreting Service with CIB in relation to important projects for the deaf community, like the voucher scheme and an ISL interpreting app. To go through pilots, we're not consulted properly on the development of the schemes. We're not involved in the assessment. And then at the moment, those schemes are shelved, and SLIS has no funding confirmed for 2023 and could have to reduce their services in January. And as a DPO, we have no information about the decision-making process or how these decisions are being made. So there really is room for a lot of improvement. On a positive note, the state is gradually recognising the critical importance of DPOs as time goes on. But we also request that there's going to be a recognition that if you don't help us build the resources to respond productively to the state and proactively get involved in developing schemes about involving DPOs, then we're not going to be able to provide the way we could. And that's what we're hoping to try and get across through our submission, which has various recommendations that we hope local government will be able to see and engage with us on. Thank you.
Thank you.